Hear me in the back? Wave your hand. Perfect. Excellent. Another one. No, just come over. Let's get this started. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start our discussion with quite a bunch of experienced business angels, private investors, and they're going to share their best practices about what to consider before making a private investment. So we'll start slowly. Unfortunately, we're a bit late. The interview with Helsingin Sanomat, there are a lot of attraction towards this sector, but let's get started. Gentlemen, you have one seat there in between left. Okay, my name is Klaas Mikko Nilsson. I work as a coordinator for FIBAN, which is a business angel network, private investor association. We got about 230 approved members. Our goal is to inspire and increase the knowledge about private investments here in Finland and North Europe, of course, the whole world. FIBAN was selected as the European Business Angel Network of the Year 2012, so we even got some credits so far. But what today we're going to discuss, we already had a few panels which described investment tools, angel best practices. If you're interested, you can watch them from the stream recorded from slush.fi. And if you're more interested to know about our angel network, it's fiba.org. We'll start with, we're lacking one panelist because there's an interesting topic which you're going to be reading about tomorrow's Helsingin Sanomat. But we'll start, and hopefully the goal is we got about an hour time to discuss all the elements, everything that has to do with private investing. And as you saw, we had a long yesterday already, discussing a lot of potential investment opportunities. So now these guys are going to share what to consider before the final decision. So hopefully we'll get some good discussions going on. So, like I said, we'll start by introducing ourselves. I did my part already. So Chris, would you care to start with your background and your role as an angel?
Sure. Microphone working? Okay. My name is Chris Vargas. I'm originally from Silicon Valley, and we just moved to Helsinki a few months ago. And my career began in the government, working on DARPANET in the late 80s, and the next 15 years working for 3 early-stage companies in executive roles, and then the last 8 years as an angel investor, working out of Palo Alto, and now coming to Helsinki. And here in Helsinki, I do 2 things. I work with startups, and I advise PwC on the new team they have, which is working with startups to provide high-value services to that community. So that's what I'm doing in Helsinki today.
Great to have you with us.
Yes, I'm Sami Miettinen, and my background is from investment banking, and was 13 years in the London city with Credit Suisse in JP Capital and SEB Enskilda. Did quite a lot of M&A deals on the large end of the universe, like billions or hundreds of millions of transaction value. Now I've been 4 years in Helsinki, and 2 years ago started doing angel investments as well, which are quite different animals from the sort of large end of M&A. Also wrote a couple of years ago a book called Neuvotteluvalta, where I interviewed and analyzed a lot of good negotiators in Finland, Jörn Wahlroos and Martti Ahtisaari and Alexander Stubb and so on. And the deal negotiations are also quite different in angel space than in the large end of the M&A.
Checking, yeah. The name is Markus Levlin. I'm a patent attorney, been working in private practice and as well in the industry side for some 16 years. And in my time I've seen quite a lot of different kinds of firms as clients, from startups to big ones, and seen many ways how to fail and many ways how to succeed. So I'm trying to tell from that background something that might help some of you guys in the future.
Excellent. And we also have Fyodor Raminov, who will be joining us in very few minutes. Gentlemen, please speak up so the good men in the back row will also hear you. So, okay, Ferdor, you enjoy joining the panel. So take a mic and please share a little bit about your background. And please speak up.
All right. So hello, my name is Fyodor Aminov. I'm an angel investor. I have been one of the founding members of FIBAN a few years ago, sitting in the board until last week. I have six investments in my portfolio right now. I'm also involved in a small fund management company on the cleantech side. Shall I talk more, or is this enough for
That's
something
good.
about my background?
I'll start doing some stupid questions, but excellent. So this panel is for you guys. Private investing, why should that be important when we got all those big-scale venture capitalists and other institutional... Well, to be honest, private investing, that's the biggest part of early-stage investing, especially in the United States. It's increasing amount in Finland. It's really helping the value of death. Like you guys, how many of you, put your hands up, are entrepreneurs at the moment? About half, a little bit more than a half. How many of you do consider yourself to be in the value of death at the moment? Hands up. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. So this panel is for you guys. We're going to try to help you find potential investors as well. That's good. And grab these guys after the discussion. And what we're going to discuss... here we go. We have a few topics. We can go here and there from this part. But what to consider, all of these guys have been going around a lot, seeing a lot of stuff. And it's time to make some investment decisions. And what should be considered? These 4 elements, IPR, special by Markus Levlin, taxation, contracts, network benefits. They're all small elements that we feel very important from FIBAN. But feel free, we're going to try to be active. We don't have the throwable microphone here now, Catchbook, but let's hopefully we have someone going around. Oh, there we go, excellent. But we'll start, and so far, let's start with the first element before getting on with the investment. IPR, intellectual property rights. Markus, would you share some best practices for especially investor point of view, what to consider before making an investment?
Thanks, Klaus-Mikko. Yeah. I've got a few ideas here, and I'm talking mostly from the investor point of view, but actually most of these things are pretty much the same for the entrepreneur and also for the angel after making the investment and working in the board and trying to improve the company. So if you bear just a few minutes with me. First thing is, of course, that you do need to look into the IPR. Sorry, they are boring, but you do have to check them a bit. The reason is that the IPR really shouldn't be some sort of line item to check. Okay, patent check, yeah, let's continue. You really should go to the CEO or CTO type of guy and ask him, what are these patents and stuff for? Do they protect cover any of the current products, and in which way? Are they something that's against the competitors, and in which way? How is the firm going to develop in the future, and how do this IPR that the company has stack up with those future plans? Well, very often in the startup stage there might not be no IPR, so it's very easy to do this pre-checking. But anyway, there is quite a lot to think then after the investment itself. The whole key point of the IPR is to support the business model and the strategy. The IPRs are so damn expensive, there is no value in themselves by themselves. The only value is supporting the business, supporting making money in some way. And the key point here, which is anyway one of the key points of investing in any way, is finding what is the central benefits, the central advantages of the company, of the startup. What's the different thing? What distinguishes them from the competition? What is the golden egg, so to say? It might be the team, it might be execution, it might be the product, but whatever, you need to find it. And in regards to IPR, think about what is there that can be covered by IPR. That's either technical, this would be patents or brand or whatever. But the golden egg, the center, the core of the company, that is the most important one.
Markus, I'll just quick question in between. You mentioned that like not everybody needs an IPR, of course. Just a quick comment from the pure angel. You got a lot of important parts when you have a potential for IPR. But for example, Theodore, when you go for a company, you go around, look around. Is IPR how important is that for you? Is that one crucial element to make an investment?
Well, I guess the protectability in general is the question. If it's then patentable or not, that may be not so important. Of course, if it's possible to have a patent for a certain technology or a method or whatever, it's of course interesting. But I would say that personally, I don't value the patents or patent pending very much in the investment stage when I make an investment. Rather, I would like to know if it's possible to patent. And another comment on that is that when you file a patent, you kind of reveal your secret, and that may not be a good idea.
So do you more like companies who already have a patent or who are about to have one or haven't even thought about it? These three. Which one is the most attractive one?
I guess I would choose one that have the possibility and the potential to patent in the future.
Hands up. Who has a potential patent pending? Excellent. So you can talk with Theodore later on. What about Chris? You feel like how important is patent for you?
So as an angel, we go very, very early, and in the Silicon Valley, patents are very expensive. So a lot of startups can't afford a patent when they're really, really young and very, very cash strapped. So what do we look for is, more importantly, the market defensiveness of the idea. Is what you're doing very defendable in the marketplace? Can few people do it? Is it really innovative? Did it take a lot of hard work that's hard to replicate? That's probably more important at the angel stage than the fact that you filed the patent, paid the fees, go through the waiting period. So you look at market defensibility, and then with the capital, they can do the patenting and the fees that it costs to do that. So we can look at both stages, the market defense, and then later on the patent defense, if that's necessary. And in some cases, it's not necessary. Some startups are all about execution and getting to market quickly, and you're less concerned about having a patent to protect you. It's getting the market to protect you by having a lot of market share. So I think it's important to look at both, the market defense as well as the legal defense when looking at patents.
Yeah, it's like Theodore mentioned that taking a patent, you reveal your secrets. But what about somebody? How do you feel if you reveal are you, as an angel, are you able to control, give extra value if a company already revealed their secret? Do you find, what are the three elements? Already a patent, about to have a patent, or haven't even thought about it? Which one of the three is more attractive for you?
Yes, I'm not so big on patents because you might have the resources to get the patent, but you probably wouldn't have the resources to defend the first breach of the patent. So I place actually personally more value for the management, the credibility, and other and the branding and the other intangibles, and not the technology patents.
Okay, excellent. Markus, you heard some angel comments here. What about, and you presented the technical part. So what would you offer these guys who are interested, especially entrepreneurs, that they already have potential for a patent? What would you recommend them to do next?
Well, before getting the first investment, Well, think about the potential because, like Fedor said, the potential and timing is of the essence also with the IPR because the patents are not about the present, they are about the future. So if you want to attract investment, try to think hard and long about where the firm might end up in the coming years, in what kind of technologies, where the golden neck would be in 5 years or so. If there would it be something that's interesting to larger players, and try to find the potential value in that because that's the most thing that the IPR can really bring. If there is some good developments coming that you can foresee, that can really bring some value in.
Okay, excellent. Well, we jumped quite precisely into the details, patents. It's quite, but like the comments were Chris and Sami. What do you? Let's take a bit back. Well, when you guys been going around, what do you look at in a company? We'll take a little break from the Pacific IPR. So let's start with Chris one more. When you go around, what do you look at a company? And if you find something interesting, what would be the first questions to consider before making an investment?
Sure, that's easy. So I rarely look at the technology as an early stage investor, right? I look at the problem that's being solved. Is it a really painful problem in the market? That's the most important thing. It's less about the product, more about the problem that the team is addressing. So the problem's got to be there. Customers have to care. And there's got to be a really good execution plan to get to that market and a well-defined market. If you're an entrepreneur, I think some of my favorite questions to ask are, what's the problem you're solving? Name 20 customers who have that problem and tell me how many of those 20 you've talked to up until now. I mean, the startup team that can say, here's the problem, here's 20 customers. I've actually met 14 of them, talked to the product managers, and they've agreed with my thesis. That's an amazing startup. And they're not talking about the product at all. They're talking about the problem. So as an angel investor, I look for problems first and products second, because honestly, engineers are so brilliant, they can almost build anything. What's harder to understand is the insights that the market is saying, here's what needs to be solved. And people can figure that out, have an amazing opportunity for success.
Quick poll here again. How many of you are looking for an investor at the moment? Hands up. And please leave your hands up. How many of you have a problem that you're solving? Almost everybody. So you're looking at a good bunch of people here. We're going to take some questions later on. What about Sami? What do you look at?
Yes, that's important. You need to solve customers' problems, and I really think the customers are the best way to develop your product as well. So I'm really looking forward how much glue there's already between the specific customers, and can those customers serve as your sort of engine for developing your concept further. And if they can pay for you, all the better.
Okay, good. Theodor, you got any additional?
Yeah. First, I like to build on Chris' comments. I think ideas and solutions, they are kind of cheap, and the actual value is in the team and their ability to execute the plan, the business plan, and realize the targets. But when going a little bit back to the solution anyway, I would say, like I probably mentioned, there are different ways of protect your technology or your solution. It might not only be patents. There are brand building that was mentioned. You might aggregate some data, some valuable data that is really hard for a competitor to replicate. In the software business, it's usually easy to protect your software if it's not an open source software, because you kind of build a black box, and hopefully you have some intelligent algorithms in the software that you are not revealing to anyone through the user interfaces. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Well, so what we discussed so far, it's what do you expect before going in and investing? You should have a problem to solve. hopefully, and from that, earlier on, you go to the technical part if there's something to protect and what way to go. Okay, well, we'll jump later on. You got any questions? What considers...
One more comment, sorry. One other metric, by the way, I want to throw in there. I talked about measuring the number of customer conversations you've had, the problem as you can describe it. I think the favorite metric, at least for me, is the customer adoption rate. Can you demonstrate that the market will pull that solution quickly out of your hands? If you can demonstrate that, that's a really key finding for investors. They want to see startups that have problems that need to be solved now, and customers that will, adopt your solution quickly. So if you can prove that metric out to an investor, that'll be a really strong mark of investability, is showing that your customers really care about what you're doing.
Yeah, kind of scalability.
And another point about the IPR and customers, I actually think it's often a good idea to talk with your bigger competitors, because when you have a startup, you often think you're going to do the Facebook route, you're going to do an IPO, or you're going to have a venture capital buying you out. But in reality, most often you of course fail, but the second biggest buyer is an industrial or competitor. So if you actually quite early on talk to the sort of relevant peers which are bigger than you, much increase the chances to sell to that company later on.
Just quick, can you hear Sami in the behind? Is that okay? Excellent. Let's go to the precise part of the IPR. So do you got some kind of questions when it comes to consideration before making an investment and the IPR part? You got any questions so far? We'll warm up later on. Well, let's go to the next part, which is partly why Ferdo came a little late. Let's go to the Finnish fun part, taxation. This is something Chris doesn't consider even in the United States. It's just taxation and Finland. Let's see how we'll get through this part. But Ferdo, would you share a little bit about your thoughts? What should the investor think about before making an investment and the taxation part? Is it a go or no? Should you invest in Finland?
Okay, so everybody knows that taxation is quite high in Finland. It's getting higher.
Here we go.
Every year. So today there's no taxation when you make an investment, but when you sell your investment and make some profit out of it, of course you make a capital gain that you pay capital gain taxes for. And when you do the investment, you can do it as a per individual, or you can do it through a company, an investment company. And doing it through a company, there's also two different companies that could be considered. One is the LTD. What's the abbreviation? Limited liability company. And then you have this commodity-yhtiö that's, I all have it written out here because the terms are not that. Limited partnership company. And when it comes to a limited partnership company, the taxation kind of is going through the company. So it's partly just a vehicle that you administrate your investments through, but the actual taxes you pay as an individual each year. And but if you do the investment through the LTD, if you want to get out the money of that company for your personal use, you need to pay taxes 2 times, so it's double taxed. First the company pays the profit tax, and then you pay your personal income or capital gain tax after you take the money out. So that's a thing you should consider. Do you need your money yourself, or do you want the money yourself for your life when you get retired, or do you just leave them in the company for next generations, or what?
Yeah. Quick question. There are 2 ways, through a company or individually. So what would you recommend? Which one is better? Hands up, who's investing privately as a person? Hands up. Chris, what about through a company?
Limited liability, myself.
Okay, very good. So okay,
I do invest through a limited partnership company.
okay. So Chris, you're doing individual investment. How does it make do you consider taxation a lot when it comes to investing in Finland?
I'm from this valley, right? It's pretty simple. I mean, Uncle Sam does not let us get away with a thing. So you don't really play much taxation. You just do it, and you pay the taxes. I mean, our country is very, very severe on tax evasion or tax minimization. So you tend to invest directly, or if you syndicate with a group of angels, you create what's called an LLC, and the LLC invests in the startup. And the LLC is sort of like a KY here in Finland, kommanditiyhtiö. So it's a similar structure that we use. And of course, venture capital funds also have LLC structures, which are the same concept, a flow-through entity. But the impact is the same in the U.S. on taxation. There's no difference whether you do it directly or through an LLC. You pay the same taxes. So we don't think much about that.
Okay. Seems idealistic. Any questions for Chris when it comes to no taxes? Anyway.
This is not a tax-related issue, but it's more for entrepreneurs who are thinking of raising capital outside of Finland. If your goal is to eventually do that, and by the way, part of me hopes that you can raise all the capital you need in Finland, grow a big business, and be successful here, because that's a very worthy goal. But if you need massive amounts of capital and you want to go to Berlin, London, or the U.S., many VCs are very shy to put money into a Finnish company or a Swedish company because it's an offshore issue. They don't know the legal rights they have. They don't know the structures, the taxation issues. So sometimes they'll say, I want to see a Delaware corporation or I want to see a Nevada corporation, and I'll invest through that. I think the Israeli model has done that very smartly. They keep all the engineering in Israel, they form a Delaware corporation, and the investors invest in the Delaware corporation. But it's not a tax issue, but it's more of an investor hesitation issue if you want to go after U.S. venture capital dollars into a Finnish company.
You have a comment on that, Sami? Okay, excellent. Well, it's a tricky part. We could discuss that a whole day. Let's take the taxation part. You got any questions on that part? I don't think you make an investment consideration. Okay, I'm going to invest in you. Do you pay taxes? Is it a go or no? But let's not get into that part. Let's jump to the maybe more interesting part. You guys been going around and you're seeing these interesting companies around. And then what about the contracts? What should an investor consider about before going into and put your money and sweat equity in? So, Sami, would you share some of your thoughts about contracts part?
Sure. Contracts are just a way of putting in words agreements between people or companies or movements of cash. So
just a quick, isn't it enough with a handshake?
No.
Okay.
No, but trust is very important because you're trying to sort of quantify and put in words what you want to achieve in the future. And for example, employment contract is you give your sweat equity, as we call it in our circles, or your work to the company, and company gives you cash. But that's a contract, and then that contract already involves the government, so you have to pay government as well as a part of that transaction. So when you make the investment, you first need to figure out how much of these sets of contracts are already in place, and can you influence them to make them more beneficial and potentially more efficient. And once you figure that out, first part is figuring out what is out there already, and then you have to understand them. Then you have to look at how to make them more efficient. And then you put on top of that your own layer of contract, which is the investment agreement and shareholders agreements and other agreements which tie this existing setup to you. And that will change the pot. So it's an interactive process. And I would highlight that there's a further element, which is that down the line, when you think of exiting your investment and the other founding members will do the same, you have to think ahead of that as well. So you need to create a documentation trail for that. And also you need to think of the mechanism. Let's say 7 years from now, what you do now will affect that process as well. So you take something which is not quite ready, you hopefully make it better by coming into the equation, and then you think of already making it even better for the next valley on the investment or exit.
Okay, that's quite interesting. What about when you bring in the paper, you're about to invest? Should you bring in the paper or should the entrepreneur have the paper ready? Well, what's more attractive? Sami?
Yeah, well, in the big scale of things, in the large deals, the first model is quite common. It's called vendor due diligence. So the existing owner or existing management team will prepare the company documents for you, and maybe use a third party who does the packaging of the contracts and the business plans and other important aspects. But then in the early stage, it's more often the angel who has to do the hard lifting, or at least do it cooperatively with the current set of owners and founders. And hopefully that process is constructive and not sort of acrimonial or the sort of fight.
Okay, what about Chris? Is it enough with the handshake?
Well, you're asking the guy from the U.S. No way. I mean, you have an amazing asset in Finland, which is your legal system. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's not. We spend weeks negotiating words and contracts in the U.S. It's ridiculous. But what I was going to say about the term sheet, I think there's a real movement towards being more friendly and fair to the startups. I'm not a big advocate of the investor bringing their term sheets in, because it's sort of a natural advantage. It's terms you're familiar with, it's terms you know. You sort of have a negotiating advantage. But then again, I'm not a fan of the startups bringing their term sheets either, because they sometimes are less clean and it's their first time, right? There's a big movement to open sourcing term sheets. And you'll see it in the Valley, I've seen it in Finland. You just go to the web, and there's these seed series and Series A documents that are amazingly simple and fair to both sides. And I would encourage any entrepreneur who's going to raise capital to open source these documents. Go to Y Combinator, for example. They produce a whole set of term sheets that simplify the process of getting capital into your company. And I think the best thing you can do is be fair about the terms, the agreements, and that both sides walk away feeling it was a good deal. And the Y Combinators of the world are trying to do that through standardizing these term sheets. And some law firms do it too. I think Wilson Sonsini and Cooley Godward also produce open source term sheets. So I would strongly encourage you to use those as a starting point for a discussion when raising your capital.
I know, Fyodor, what models do you use? Have you used one of these ready models, or have you built your own? Or do you use the entrepreneurs?
I guess so. I've mostly used Finvera's templates because.
Finvera! Excellent.
Because in most of my investments, Finvera is about one investor as well, and they require us to use them. But back to the contracts, I think that it's really important from the investor's point of view that you agree on every detail, because as an investor, you kind of put in your money to mainly pay the salaries of the entrepreneurs for some months further. And you really know what those money is spent for, and what the entrepreneurs will do when you pay their salaries. So everything from what you can spend them on, how much you can spend them on what, and can you dilute my investments in some case or way, and all such things. And I guess those shareholder agreements, the standard ones, they address all those things and it's a good sense to use those standard templates.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, Markus.
Just one small point, one mode of failure, which I've seen a couple of times too many. If you guys do have any IP or any patents or so, make sure that they are assigned to the company and not in the name of the founder, because it's very easy that sometimes the founder might have to leave the company, and if the IPR is in the name of the founder, then the company is screwed, basically. So always in the name of the company, and only have one owner with them. Otherwise, they just make all the sale of the company very difficult.
All right. Question here.
Thanks. One question about the contracts. Should they be all in English just in order to make sure that you don't have to translate them? subsequently, if you involve investors that don't understand the Finnish, or just to make clear that there are no kind of interpretation differences between how they are treated or anything, even if all of the kind of founders in the startup and the other parties are actually kind of Finnish speaking?
If you're a Finnish company and all the investors are Finnish and this is a solely Finnish round, I think it's fine to have Finnish documentation. Those aren't shared publicly. It's when you go to the next round and you do have some non-Finnish investors, you'll need to do the translation then. I don't see a need to do both languages if you're just having all Finnish investors, personally, because it's confidential information, right?
Yeah, I agree. I have done both, and I think it's a journey. So you maybe start with Finnish documentation on the legal side of things, and then you start introducing, hey, let's do the board minutes in English and so on. So it might be okay to start in Finnish.
Yeah, I would recommend that everybody does start with English from the start. It's so much easier than when you go further, seeking investors from abroad. For them to do a due diligence on historical data, it makes it quite hard if you need to translate all the history first to English.
Good question. Markus, what about IPR? Should they be done in English or is that automatic?
Well, naturally, I'd recommend in English because the IPRs, which are only valid in Finland, are nowadays really not much use. Where you need them is where your markets are. That would be the US and maybe a couple of European countries. So English, please.
Excellent. Well, good. Thanks for your question. Any more questions that considering contracts or in that part?
Sorry, one comment, sorry.
Sure.
Just on the contract issue, again, I'm going to wear the hat of the entrepreneur here. If you're raising capital, I would seriously advise you to spend a few weeks before you engage with investors and just study all those terms in a contract, right? There's some funny looking terms around liquidation preferences and covenant rights, and just make sure you understand that well. And one of the ways to do that is to bring on a mentor or an angel investor who's sort of on your side of the table, and to help you understand what's a fair deal. I mean, what is it fair to give an investor, and was it fair to protect in the company? Because I've seen so many negotiating games. I mean, the investors have a huge advantage. We do this every month. We just do deal after deal after deal. And for many startup CEOs, it's your first time you've negotiated an investment contract. So get somebody on your side of the table who's friendly to you, who's going to negotiate on your behalf, who knows all those funny terms. Because one of those funny terms could really come up and hurt you in the next round or a couple years down the road when there's an exit or some other funding process that's happening. So just get that wisdom on your side of the table if you can.
Excellent. Well, definitely parts. Any more questions on contracts part? We'll be going further on and discussing the best practices and what to consider before making an investment. And these guys are really experienced guys. How many investments have you done, by the way? Fedor, you were done, was it 16?
I've done 7. I have 6 left.
Okay, that was sorry. Sami, what about?
Well, I'm early on the early stage, so I only have 2 at the moment. But like I said, I've done 30 M&A deals on my life.
Chris?
18 or 19, 18 to 20, something like that.
All right. Chris, what would be your ideal if you got a case and you're really considering making an investment? So how fast does it go? Like from the interest you go around, you see something interesting. How fast is it? How long does it take?
Well, personally, my process is a little bit slower because when you go really, really early, you don't know a lot of information. So I like to personally get to know the founders really well before I would invest in the company. It takes a couple of months to do that. I like to work with the team, roll up my sleeves, do some operational work, just get to know what problem they're solving and the quality of the team there, and then become an investor after that. The problem with angel investing is you know the least amount of information, and it's the highest risk, and you can make so many bad decisions. And the only way to give yourself an advantage is to get insights into the team, the problem, the market, and the execution strategy. And in a supportive way, not in any way meaning to get special advantage, but just understanding what's there. Later stage VCs have data, and they should be able to move much faster than an angel would. Because now you've got sales, you've got product, you've got customer conversations. That should speed up the process a lot. So each round should be faster, in my opinion, as you go for subsequent funding rounds. And of course, I think in Finland you have a lot of government involvement early on, which replaces angels in the valley. So maybe that works at a government speed. I don't know how fast that is. But in the valley, angels typically need 2 to 3 months to understand you and get confidence in your team and your ability to execute before they'll write a check.
Okay, 2 to 3 months. So from now on, it's not a Christmas present. It's quite tight to get a Christmas present investment. So it goes to January, February if you're interested now. Okay, all right. Sami, what about your experiences? How long does it take to get into the final investment?
Well, I'm quite picky, so I get a lot of pitches and only do a few of them, so maybe I'm not the best benchmark because I turned them down in the quite early stages, a lot of them. But yeah, if you can get a good team to do the investment, then I really like the concept in Fiban. We have called syndication, where you team up with other good investors. You can really speed up the process, so it's possible to go in the 2-month time frame. If you do it alone, you often end up sort of getting skeptical and dropping the case because it's hard to run on it on your own.
All right. We had a panel yesterday with Erik Wendergren from Sweden. Already this year, he went through over 500 investment possibilities, and he invested so far in three companies. But what about Theodore? How many? You go around, you consider. Do you see a lot of deal flow? What's the amount?
I think I see something between 200 and 300 companies a year, and I invest in 1 or 2. So I guess it's the same ratio about. So it's really a very few of the companies who get investments, and I guess if it's a very interesting deal, the process can go very quick in a couple of months. If the deal is kind of not ready for investment yet, you might need to follow it for more than a year even, and then when you think it's the right time, if it will become the right time, you go in. So it differs quite a lot. Also, some companies, they might not need funding right at the moment when you bump into them. So then you might wait for the next round.
Well, this is the 5th Slush, if I'm correct. 5th. So there's been quite many. And what about here? You have 300-400 startups. So there's a good chance 1 or 2 will, according to that statistics, get an investment. What about Chris? Had you had the time to see the cases so far, and what would you consider any good opportunity for investment from here, from Slush?
From Slush? Yeah, I think 1 company's here, and 1 is not. So I've seen 2 in my 3 months in Finland that really caught my attention, but have not invested yet. Need to get to know them.
So what will it require? You go around. So what should the company do? What attracts you? What will make you get interested?
As I opened up earlier, describe the problem, right? Describe 20 customers who have that problem. How many of you talk to? Give me the evidence that you're really doing something customers care about. And I can't stress that enough, because startups tend to be engineers. I'm an engineer. In fact, I studied at Tampere University of Technology and got my master's degree there. But you tend to be very product focused in engineering. I remember writing code and very proud of that code. But out in the marketplace, the product is less important than the problem. So the team that can describe the problem is the one that's probably going to catch the investor attention the most. When I walk around the booths and I say, "What's up?" When they start talking about product, I try to slow them down and say, "What's the problem that's being solved here?" And then they sort of get it, and they give a really good description of the problem, and then you have a good conversation with the teams. Being problem-focused instead of product is my advice.
Some of you want to comment on that? Well, let's have the same question for you as well. What would attract? Some of you have 2 investments. What would make you interested in a company? Just to grab your attention. What should they say?
Well, I'm a very big networker, so I actually put a lot of time into checking the backgrounds of the people, and I talk with the people who have done business with them, and I really go for the team. So as a sort of, if they have the sort of personal glue to get the idea to revenue stream, then that's the most important thing. And then, I mean, I'm biased, but if I sort of understand the product myself or the concept, then that it makes it much easier for me. So that the team and actually then subjectively my own understanding of the dynamics.
Okay, good. I think we're going to move on to the fourth element, which we discussed. What combines you, gentlemen, more or less experience from angel investing? You're part of a network, an angel network, and just quickly, why are you part of a network? What's the benefits? And we'll go more into details from that. How the entrepreneur benefits from these networks. But Chris, you recently joined the angel network. Why?
Sure. So my experience has been first as an individual angel running around Silicon Valley trying to find deals. I did that for a few years. That wasn't very successful. And then I joined a group in Palo Alto called the Angels Forum, an extremely integrated, well-managed, every week we met for an entire day, well-structured organization. I did that for about 4 years. And then the third phase was sort of forming loose coalitions of angels where we'd find a deal together, work together, offer a term sheet, and then invest. And of the three models, the third one has been the most successful for me. And I think that that's a form of a network, and I think the network works on both sides favorably. For the investors, by working together, you see more deal flow, you can do due diligence more effectively. The group probably has more value to add to the startup than one individual would. And you can have more negotiating advantage in terms of the terms that you'd like to see in the term sheet. Now, for the startup, startups that try to deal with individual angels is really a frustrating thing. Why? Every angel is going to have a different idea about what you're worth, what special conditions they want, what rights they want. And you can have 15 parallel conversations that just make you go nuts. So I really do advise startups to find a group of angels who you can talk to. I mean, for example, Fiban has a great policy where if one investor likes your idea, he'll quickly get a group of other angels together and they'll form a committee and start to work with you. And I think that's a good model because both sides can really benefit from doing that. The angel gets a simpler conversation, one term sheet, one set of conditions, a larger group to tap into, and the investors get the advantage of working together on their own due diligence. So I think networks work really effectively both ways. But I want to caveat one thing that can happen in networks of angels is you can somehow feel a little bit more powerful sometimes. You can say, hey, there's 5 of us. We've got a big check collectively. We want to have some really tough terms on you. And I really advise against that. I mean, anytime you're being unfair to a startup, it may feel good for the first round, but it's always going to come back and haunt you. I think you've got to build fairness into your offer so both sides, 2 or 3 years down the road, feel like it was a good deal. I mean, a small advantage now can be a tough relationship in the years ahead. So I always advise groups of angels to be very fair and really see it from the startup's perspective as well as their own.
Okay, so you all agree that the group investing is a good thing because like all the stuff we have in Slush and around, if I find something interesting, I know it's going to rock. Why on earth should I split the word and share with others? Is it really worth it? Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so funny you say that because that's a funny attitude. If anybody has that attitude as an investor, my first thought is
Finland.
Okay. Maybe. Why would you do that? Because in one sense, bringing more people to the table does a lot for the startup. You got more skill sets to draw upon. In the Angels Forum, we'd like to have a sales guy, a marketing guy, a finance guy, and a manufacturing guy. That's the ideal coalition of investors because everybody has something to offer. And angels should be offering the startups some value add. It's kind of hard for one person to really bring all the skills that a startup needs at the early stage. I think coalitions are much, much better. They scale better. Think about if you're the first guy in and you don't tell anybody else. What about the next round when they need 5 times what you put in the first time? Do you have that amount of capital? Probably not. If you're working with 5 other investors, they probably do. So the startup gains, and I think you gain as well. You can participate in future rounds much easier. So I'm not a big fan of, it's my deal, I'm not going to tell anybody, I'm going to keep everybody away. I think that's way too much risk for an angel investor.
Do you agree,
I hope I didn't
gentlemen?
offend anybody.
Oh, the true Finns, no, not in the political meaning, like true Finns anyway. So what about Fyodor? I heard rumors you might have made an investment alone once, was it? Or have you always made syndicated investments?
Yeah, I made investments alone, but there were previous investors in that case also, so I wasn't totally alone. But although there were investors, they were quite passive, so it was a heavy burden for me. So I rather never ever again invest alone. And if I invest with somebody, I really make sure that they bring something to the table. So, and a little bit back to this syndication and so on. The main problem for angel investor is to different or to invest in as many cases as possible because only one of 10 investments actually will be a success statistically. So you need to invest in 10 or more cases, and you can't be active in all those 10 cases or more personally very heavily. So you need to share this with others like-minded. So being in a network, in a business angel network, really makes this possible. You can be active in a few cases now when your competence is needed. Then you can jump up over to some other cases when your competence is needed there. And you have other angels who could take over when your competence is not enough for the case. And also you can kind of gather the competence that you need for a special case. There might be, we have quite a big network in Fiban. We have over 200 members. So probably you find one member who's an expert in the field where the company operates in. And that is a really good value to really understand the industry, to understand the customers, the technology, and so on. Then you might be good to have a lawyer. It's always good to have a lawyer as an investor. Much cheaper that way also. And some sales and marketing guy and so on, what Chris already told you. One more thing is that you actually need to think as an investor, and also maybe this is a good thing to know for the entrepreneurs, that the investors should invest in many cases, and their initial investment shouldn't be more than half of the money that they are prepared to put in that case. I would say rather even that it shouldn't be more than 1/3 of the money that you eventually invest in the same case. So your first investment in a company is only 1/3 of the total amount you are ready to invest in that company during the lifetime. Because there will be 3 to 5 rounds before the A round, if there ever will be an A round, before the company is cash flow positive. So you really need to save some money to put in later on. If you don't do that, if you entrepreneurs not make sure that the investors do have money for further rounds, then you probably die very soon.
Ouch! Always good to end a speech in the word of dying. But okay, we discussed that like syndication is a good guy. It's nice to have friends. All these rounds. So what about the final results? Like there's one gentleman, Ari Korhonen, who's always speaking about exits. I heard some rumors that might be interesting for an angel as well. So how do you evaluate exit potential when you make an investment? Is there any part of is it a crucial element that an entrepreneur should have a potential customer who's going to buy you out? So what would your comment be, Sami? When you make an investment, do you consider the exit alternative?
Yeah, and like I said, it shouldn't be often the customer who buys you out. It's your sort of competitor, bigger competitor. That's I think the most natural exit, because so you might be developing a niche that they don't have, but then they really want to buy you because they have the resources to buy you without having to put their own development in place. So that's of course hard to know in advance because a lot of these markets are new, so you can't look at the future where the competitive situation will be then. But you know the sort of general sector. So I put a lot of effort in understanding the industry dynamics and competitive dynamics and on exit thinking.
What about Chris?
The exit is a pretty tough conversation sometimes. I mean, we heard Sami Inkinen make a really good point that there is no exit for the entrepreneurs. They're here to build a long-term business, and I really agree with that statement he made. However, investors are not part of the founding team. They're not employees. They've got an interim role in helping the company to continue to infinity, ideally. So it is appropriate for investors to talk about exits, even though it makes founders a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. And I think we're seeing that acquisition is a new exit. I mean, IPOs are fewer and far between. They're tough to realize. And cash flow companies are less interesting to investors. So I think the acquisition opportunity is what we look for. And I think a good thing to have if you're an entrepreneur in your head is, who are the 3 to 5 companies that could acquire my business or my technology? And talk about that with your investors. Knowing both your customers and your potential acquirers is a really good sign that you understand the potential for your business. So talk about that. And maybe look for angel investors who have backgrounds in that industry. Maybe you want to get acquired by Cisco. I worked for Cisco for 9 years, right? Maybe you want to get acquired by Google. Find some Google angels. They can give you good insights as to what makes that company look at you attractively and want to acquire you. So I think angels have a lot of roles in helping you figure out the angel exit, not your exit, right? Because I think you want to build a long-term business. So find angels who understand that dynamic, and that'll be a huge value add for your fundraising.
You want to comment on that?
If I continue with some comments on exits. Have you ever heard about a thing called the venture capital dilemma? Anyone? Hands up? Well, think about this case. About 95% of all mergers and acquisitions are, or let's say the mean value of mergers and acquisitions, the value of the deals, is about 20 or 15 million euros. And only 5% of these deals are more than 100 million euros. So now if you're a company and you seek for venture capital money, let's say that you raise 5 million, you give away 30% of your company. So you have a post valuation of 50 million. Now the VC is looking for 20 times return on that investment. So what's 20 times 15? 300,000? Right. So did you make your possibility and opportunity of getting an exit better after you got that 5 million VC money? Will you ever have an exit? Just a thought.
We should definitely have a different panel with the VCs against the angels. We'll have it next year, if not sooner. Some of you have a comment or that's fine. Okay, any more questions? We got a few minutes left. Would you like to? There we go. I have 2 questions.
Thanks. You said in the very beginning that the solving a real customer problem is the key. So have you ever in your kind of long years in the business angel networks encountered an angel that puts some value into solving other problems that are typically not the customer's first problems, like environmental problems, social problems, or whatever like that? So nothing like a pure business, but more like a second thought.
Yes, I have. The question was, have I ever invested in a company with a non-financial goal? Social, changing the world. Absolutely. I invested in an entrepreneur in Colombia who was doing a project to save the rainforest, protect a species from extinction. She's an amazing entrepreneur, and she needed a small amount of money to do amazing things. I don't expect any return, of course, but to know that a small amount of capital can protect rainforests and protect a species is a pretty amazing return for me. So yeah, she's my favorite entrepreneur in the world, and she's amazing. Proyecto Tito in Bogota, Colombia.
What is the question there?
Hello. Hi, I'm John, first-time entrepreneur. Question was, as an angel investor, what kind of equity stake are you looking for in a company? And the second thing is, as an entrepreneur, what should I look for in investors?
I can talk all day. So I think your question is, what should you look for in an angel investor, and what should the angel look for in you? Was that correct?
Equity stake from what do you expect, what makes it worthwhile for you, plus what should I look for in an investor?
Yeah, I want to answer the second one because I think it's probably more relevant for the audience, right? What should you look for in an angel investor? And I would look for a couple things. I look for someone who has relevant value to add to my business. And how can that be realized? Number one, they introduce you to key customers or channels or partners that you need. They've got a background that opens some doors. Number two, they can help you build a team. They got a good network of people that have worked for them before or that they know. They can build a team for you. Number three, they can help you raise additional capital. I think it's early stage. You want to find investors who know the fundraising game as well. So I would add those are the three core qualities to look for. And the fourth one is, it's kind of a softer one, but you do want somebody you can call up at midnight and say, oh my God, everything's screwed up. I got to unload on you. I got to tell you what's going on here, like a therapist, if you will. It's kind of a soft role, but you want an investor who really is going to be there when times get really crappy and you don't know who to turn to, because as a CEO, who can you talk to? Can you really tell your employees things are really screwed up? Well, that's hard, right? So you want somebody you can counsel with, help you understand the tough spots, and give you some good guidance and wisdom so you can make a better decision. So I'd put those four things. Access to customers and channels, access to new hires for the team, additional capital, and a good therapist, if that's what you may need.
Yeah, and perhaps is proud of you as well. For example, you also check out Padio.fi, where I'm a board member and investor, and it's good if the investor is actually open to talk about the investments to the wider world where he's in, because that's a good sign that they also put their own credibility in the line.
One more comment. Go to other startups they've invested in and ask those CEOs, do they have integrity? Are they fair? Are they, that's a really good reference check. They're going to reference check you, for sure, but you should reference check them. And the best reference is the previous companies they invested. What do they say about the investor? I think that's a good source of data.
Excellent.
Yeah, and one answer to your question still, like we don't look for big shares in your company, but we're interested in what the value of your company is when we are investing. And one single angel might invest only 10,000 euros initially, or up to 50,000. But then again, a group of angels might invest up to 1 million if there's 20 of them or something. So if you're heading for bigger money, go to Fiban. If you just need 10,000, go to one single angel. And we don't want actually a majority of any investment, because that makes the motivation for the entrepreneurs less interesting. I think you might have asked something like that.
Excellent comments. Any more questions so far? We're going before. Open mic, yeah. No. I think we're wrapped up now. Excellent. We got the time, so thank you very much. Here we go, and that's my son Oliver. Let's give a big hand for Oliver as well. And any more questions, feel free to grab these guys and go and pitch here later on. Thanks.